Leona's Trinity of Trinity Place Designs is a New York-based mobile stylist providing in-home hair care and an e-commerce platform for all your hair care needs. Today, we're going to hear all about her journey to becoming a business owner, her challenges and triumphs. You definitely don't want to miss this. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I'm your host. Today, I'm with Leona's Trinity. How are you today, Leona's?
I'm doing well. Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We had a couple of cancellations and misunderstandings and stuff, so I'm finally
Yep, but we
finally getting.
made it.
Yes, we
We
did.
made
Yes, we
it.
did. Um, well, I think I'm really excited to hear about your story, and I think people will really appreciate you coming on and sharing. So, let's first start off with asking you, how long have you been a stylist?
Okay, so when I first started doing hair, I was 10 years old. That's from when I remember. My mom says I started showing interest at 5 years old. So it's been about 25 years, but professionally, after I graduated from Paul Mitchell, it was 6 years
All right.
professionally.
All right, cool. So you graduated 6 years ago?
Yeah, around 2015. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Your how and why you got into it, and why
hmm
don't we start off with that?
Okay, so when I was younger, I basically always wanted to rebel against whatever my mom was trying to do with my hair. And I'm like, I don't like the styles that you're doing on me. They're too old. They don't match my new style. And I basically was just telling her I don't want to do my hair anymore. She got fed up, and I was basically forced into doing it because I had such an attitude about the styles that she was doing. It just didn't match what the trends were in my head at the time. So from that point, I started practicing on myself, on dolls, and then on my sister. And then word of mouth kind of just spread that I was naturally good at doing hair. So it all started from then.
Nice, nice. I love that. So,
Yeah.
so how old? So you're young. You're like really into hair, and tell us
hmm
about where does the professional side of stuff kind of begin? Tell us a little bit about that part of the journey.
So I was always a person that always had a bunch of different types of jobs, but hair was always in the background. And as I got older, I knew that I could do hair, but I'm like, I gotta work. I have to work, so I can always have something to rely on. And when I got older and I had some challenges with the company I was working with, it was like low staff and all these different issues. I'm like, you know what? I have to take this more seriously. So I kind of always had in the back of my mind, okay, make sure you go to school, have your license. Even if you sit on the license, at least you have it. And whenever you need to pull it out, you make sure that it's always up to date and you can use it. So once I was faced with that issue with my employer, like, I felt like they weren't backing us, we didn't have the right support. I was like, I have to push this forward. So I was glad that I had my license to fall back on. And, it kind of pushed me in the direction to say, listen, you have this talent and it's going to waste because you're just working. And everyone's always asking you to do their hair, but you can't because you're working. So once I felt like that, I bought like a vendors list where I said, okay, I'm going to get some retail products. I'm going to put this in addition to me doing hair so that when the clients leave and they always ask me what I use on my hair, I have something else to sell and I can have additional income in case something like this ever happens with another job again. I don't only have to rely on them. I can rely on my talent. So that's really where it pushed me into being official.
So, let's kind of go back a little bit. So you go to school. You went to
Paul
did you go?
Mitchell Partner School in Staten Island.
Okay, so Paul Mitchell
hmm
Partner School in Staten Island, and then
hmm
so you got out of school, and then what? Tell us about like your first job. Is this the salon you're talking about? The first job you had out of school?
No. I was working at Dry Bar in Tribeca when I first got out of school. So I still had the license. It was still like I knew what that I needed to get my license. And once I finished school, I knew I don't start anything without finishing it, but I didn't have an exact plan of what I was going to do. Like, okay, I'm going to leave school and get a salon. I didn't have like a distinct idea of what I wanted to do. I just knew it was important to get the license. So once I applied to Dry Bar was cool. You know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of their techniques, but it wasn't something individual, you know, and I obviously always strive for my own individuality. So even though I learned a lot of skills from them, it was the Dry Bar way, you know, it wasn't really the Trinity Place Designs way. So I took those skills that I learned from there and I just kept honing on my ideas until I finalized what I wanted to do officially.
Okay, so you go to school, you get
Mm-hmm.
out of school, you start working at Dry Bar,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. And
Yeah.
then you're at Dry Bar and you're learning there, you're developing your own brand, you're developing
Mm-hmm.
your own style. Okay, and then what's the next move?
So after that, I worked there for some time, but then I got called for another job. So that was always the ongoing struggle of me working to make more because, as you know, in certain salons, you're not always going to make the top. You have to work your way up. So, you know, you're a stylist, but you're working off tips. You might be working off commission. You're not making enough to really survive, you know, if this is something that you really want to do. So I always had to supplement doing hair because it just wasn't bringing in enough at the time for what my lifestyle called for.
Doing hair, you mean referring like not in
Like
the
just yeah, in the salon, out of the salon, all of it collectively just wasn't enough to maintain monthly bills that I had after being in school. So I
okay.
always had to supplement that. Yeah.
And you're supplementing it with mobile styling, is that what I'm
Well,
understanding?
it was mobile styling, but also like a city job or, you know, any other type of job that I knew would be consistent. So
Okay.
I would always, it was always on the side, even though my talent was not like a side hustle. It ended up being that way because I just was trying to gain more clientele of my own, but I was always under the shadow of a company. So Dry Bar or, you know, my clients are going out of town or they move. So I always had a challenge of not just they know I'm reliable, but they move and they change. So then my standard clientele isn't there anymore. So I have to rebuild again. So that's part of the struggle that I faced being a stylist, even though I was, you know, I am a great stylist. My clientele wasn't always put right there, you know, rely on them monthly.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like right now you're touching on something that a lot of stylists, when they're first starting to get out of school, um, and building that clientele, you know, starting off, even if you find a salon that'll put you right on the floor and start giving you
Hmm.
customers, it's still pretty tough, you know, to make it. I mean,
Yes.
especially if you're living in a big city, you know, it's just
Yes. There's a
pricey.
lot of competition in New York.
It's
And
expensive.
very expensive. And there was a time period where it was cool to be a stylist. So, regardless of your natural talent, it was a trend. So now people who had absolutely no interest in hair might look a certain way. They might have more means, they might have more access than you. So now they're grabbing up all the clients because, you know, they might know more people or they get all their friends to come in, you know, they live down the street. Oh, stop by. So there is a lot of competition. And although you have great talent, there's a lot more layers than just you having great talent. You know, how well do you communicate with the clients? You know, are you welcoming enough? Are you closing the sale? Are you doing everything that Dry Bar wants you to do once you're doing the hair? You know, are you always at work in time to have that relationship with the client that wants their hair done every week? So it's a lot more layers that, you know, a lot of stylists have to be aware of.
So, so how long have you had the Trinity Place Designs, you know, brand or concept or business, where that, I guess what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, um, at what point in time did Trinity Place Designs become a thing, either in your head or actually like legally filed the documentation?
Hmm.
It's more like I'm thinking like when did Trinity Place Designs begin? And yeah, when did it begin?
Right. So ever since young, I always had like a long list of goals. So I always knew Trinity Place Designs was going to be something. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. But officially, in 2021 August, that's when I legally filed for it. But it was something that I always knew. So even when I started making up my little handmade T-shirts, I always had Trinity Place Designs. It's just getting to the road of being official and professional, and having everything set in stone and actually building the brand itself. That all officially happened last year. Well, now we're in 2023, 2 years ago. But before that, I always knew that that's something that I wanted.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about that. Like, were while you had this idea and you were
Hmm.
using the Trinity Place Designs brand name
Hmm.
before it was like officially filed,
Right.
because the officially filing thing really is it's a step, it's an important step that people should take, but
Hmm.
primarily for like protections, so
Right. Right.
people can take your stuff, take your
Hmm.
name or your whatever. But like
Hmm.
if you can start building your brand, deciding
Hmm.
on your colors and your themes and your vibe and like
Right.
how do
Yeah.
customers interact with you. So
Hmm.
did you were you working on anything like that prior to this official filing? Like how were
Yeah.
you building this brand?
Yeah. So, like I said, thank God, once I started to understand how to build clientele, my clientele was solely built on word of mouth. So I always made sure to do a good enough job on that one client that when they went out, they would give my number out. So I never really had to, go door to door or hand out cards because my work spoke for itself. So during that time, I'm like, I'm really onto something. Always make sure that the customer is always right and always comfortable no matter what you do, even if they hate what you do, make them so comfortable that you know what, you're going to reassure them that you can fix this problem. They explain this out. So I started building on my customer service. I started building on my colors, like you said. So I wanted colors that were long lasting: black, silver, white, dark purple. Normally I see pink often, or maybe yellow, like how you have yellow. I kind of wanted something opposite of that. And then I also started to think, okay, if you say Trinity Place Designs, it's something that makes people think. Is it a design company? Is it an architect company? Because that will build conversation around it. And then when you tell them you're a hairstylist, then your look, then everything else just follows. So I did plan prior to how I wanted people to receive it. So picking even that name wouldn't just close me off to Trinity Place Designs hair. Not that anything's wrong with that, but I always had a vision that I didn't want to be stuck in the box, of only being Trinity Place Designs hair and that's it. I wanted to at least be able to be at Fashion Week, and I'm there, but I'm also be able to walk the fashion show. So the company itself can produce other talents than just hairstylists, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So you get out of school and sounds like are you working in salons, going around to different salons and stuff for the first 5 years until you go official? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, during that time, I stayed at a dry bar and I was still working and doing hair on my own. But my clients I already had, like I said, it's always like word of mouth. Like, oh, my friend that I graduated with is working at dry bar. You should come. So during that time, I went to dry bar, and after that, I kind of worked at like salons in Staten Island that were here and there, but they never lasted long. Unfortunately, there'll be a pop up salon. Somebody would come. They would think that it's a good location. They'll get some traffic, but unfortunately it'll close and then I have to go search again. So I did that for some time until I really figured out that I need to just do this on my own and stop kind of like riding the coattails of other business owners, because I'm not really defined by their ideas or their plans. So I need to just do this on my own, So I stayed in contact, like you said, with my teacher, Diana, and she helped along the way as well. A lot of the programs that Paul Mitchell did, I would come up to. Then I did teaching at Paul Mitchell as a guest artist. So keeping my network solid was very helpful. That even if I did, quote unquote, lose a job, I ended up landing something else because of the network that I was building and always being professional and reliable things like that. So yeah, I kind of hopped from salon to salon, but not major salons. It was salons that you wouldn't have known because it was in my local area.
Okay. All right. So it sounds to me, and like, just correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds to me that
Hmm.
your the beginning of your career as a stylist was a little tumultuous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, can you speak on that for anybody who else who's having like a?
Uh-huh.
I mean, okay.
Yes.
Well, sorry. Before you, I don't want mean to cut you off.
Hmm.
Like I one some of the things that like when I talk to the students, and then or I talk to them like just after school, uh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of anxiety and like a lot of stress over what are they going to do? Are they making the right decision? Like, should they work
Hmm.
here? Oh, I've been working here for this long and I haven't gotten this out of them and I don't know
Hmm.
what to do. So like with that in mind, that's kind of like I'd love to hear you speak to like to that what that was like for you and how you
Yeah.
managed it and like any other challenges
Yeah.
that came up.
Yes. There's in life in general, there's always going to be challenges, some that we expect, some that we don't expect. My biggest tip is to always have like a goal sheet, whether it's a lifelong goal sheet and then you break it down. So you know you're in school now, you don't know what exactly you want to do, but be a student and learn. Like gravitate towards a head stylist or just ask, can I shadow you while you're doing this? I know I'm just a shampoo girl, but can I shadow you so I can learn your technique? That was something that was an advantage to me. So even though maybe I was kind of shy about my skills and I thought I was good, but maybe I see someone doing better, you have to find some way to gravitate towards someone that you can model after because somebody might teach you something that you didn't think of yourself. Sometimes we try to try to do it all, but when you're in that type of setting, you need to reach out to someone. So I have family issues going on. I have work. I have all these different things. You're trying to be a part of everything, trying to have a social life. You're trying to get a career. All these things will come racing, but you just have to kind of make a list of your goals and follow that. So let's say I'm in school now. In 3 months, I'll be out of school. I really want to go to the salon. Walk in that salon one day and get your hair done. See how the salon works. See how people act. See how they speak to you. Do they have a slogan? When you walk in, are they nice? See if that's where you would want to work. If they're going to be accepting of you, if they're accepting of you as a client, maybe it might be a great place for you to work. There's a lot of things that you got to do, I guess, kind of like research. You got to research what you want before you actually get it. Envision it. Like, do I see myself in here? Do I fit the aesthetic of this place? Or do I belong somewhere else? So those are the kind of things that I did when I was graduating. Even though I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, I still researched towards what I thought I wanted to do, if that makes sense. So hopefully, a lot of the students sometimes they go to hair school because they don't know what they want to do and their parents kind of just say, oh, go to hair school since you have nothing else to do. So if you don't really have a passion for it, it's kind of hard to force a passion out of something that you have no interest in. So I think it even starts there. If you recognize that I spent this amount of time in school and I don't like it, don't force a career out of it because it may or may not work in your favor, and then you in turn hate it, and it might push you in the wrong direction. So definitely define, can I see myself doing this the next 5 years, 10 years? Is this really what I love? What do I love about hair? Do I love hair cutting? Do I love coloring? Do I love curly hair? So maybe you can find a niche within it if you figure that you do love it.
And what about okay, so that's good for like people who are in school, getting out of school,
Hmm.
constantly checking. All right, I mean, even mainly kind of any point in your career, you can ask yourself, hey, am I still happy? Am I happy doing this
Hmm.
environment, working around these people, working with customers, doing
Right.
the craft? There's also a lot of other facets of the industry, like there's like salespeople in sales and
Hmm.
corporate offices and stuff. So like
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a good one. How about like kind of the how do you deal with the stress of like because you mentioned how some places were that you would go to work at they'd be like a startup or pop up and it really wouldn't
Hmm.
take off, and then you were kind of left to kind of trying to figure out what your next
Yeah,
step was again.
yeah,
So I
definitely, definitely be okay with failure. I know it may sound crazy just using that, harsh of a word because it's so much darkness surrounded by the word failure. But if you really want this, you're gonna get knocked down. You have to figure out the best way to get back up. So being a part of a business that doesn't work out, I'm sure it probably hurt the owner more than it hurt me because I can just float to somewhere else. Um, you might get no's in the beginning, but it doesn't always stay a no. It's just a no for now. And that's something that I had to remind myself that, hey, I went to interview at this location and they told me no. And then I become devastated, but it's just a no for now. Maybe it wasn't the right fit. You can always go revisit. Maybe they'll need you at a different point in time in life. I think it's more so don't take every setback as the end of everything. There's going to be times where you're not just the fit for that moment. I learned a lot of times that sometimes I felt like, oh, I could be a teacher. I would be great as a teacher, and why didn't they pick me to be a teacher? And it just didn't fit at that time because right after that something else came up that was better. I always try to tell any stylist, that is going for something, if they say no, politely say, no problem, but keep the contact because you never know when they might need to call you or you might need to call them again. And I think that's important that it might be a better opportunity later on. As far as challenges, the most recent challenge that I faced while I was opening my business was I suffered from Hurricane Ida, where my entire apartment was destroyed. And I still had to launch my business. So the storm hit September 4th. My entire apartment was washed away. I had to move back home with my parents, but then I had a launch on my birthday. So when I say that you have to still stand up and still show up for what you put out there for yourself, I knew I had a deadline. I knew I wanted to drop on my birthday, and a storm didn't stop me, and I literally was floating away. I had to pack everything. Everything was soaking wet. I lost a lot. But people that saw my launch never knew that that happened until I released it, in things that I'm doing, like talking to you or in articles, because that wasn't the main focus. The main focus was I put out this product. I want the world to know about it. And even though the sad story is part of it, right now the main focus is to get this business out there. And it was a great launch, But then now that people hear what actually happened behind the scenes, now they kind of are about pieces itself together. Like, wow, you were going through all of that. You had to move. You lost an apartment, and you still launched like nothing was wrong. It's kind of like a survival story. So people gravitate towards you, and they're like, wow, if she can do that, I can do it too. And my problem wasn't even as big as losing a home. So those are the kind of things that I try to be as transparent with people when they ask, well, you're so consistent. It takes time. And with the internet and social media, we want everything today. Well, yesterday, really. Okay, this person became a millionaire last night, and all she did was curl. I could curl better than her, but that's just the world we live in. Your time is your time, and you're gonna get there. Anything can happen to you, but if you know that you have your eyes on that goal, you can make it. You can really make it. I surprise myself sometimes with the things that I do, and I'm like, I really was homeless, and some people say that, oh, it was homeless, but when it actually happens, you're like, wow, I can't believe that me, like, because you look at yourself in a certain way, you work towards a certain space. So it's kind of like you don't ever think that the things you watch on the news will ever happen to you, and when it does, you find this strength you never even knew you had.
Right, right. That's good. That's really good. So when you're talking about your launch, are you talking about Trading Place Designs? Or are you talking about your e-commerce platform?
Yes, it
Or
was both all together. So Trinity Place Designs is just the company name, and the e-commerce store I launched selling products online. Like I launched the website September 27th. So I had worked on the designs of the product. I outsourced. And I had a few items that I was selling hand to hand, and the website went live. So after the storm, I didn't want to push the date back, and I said, no, we're still going to go live. And that was the drive, that because I kind of felt like, okay, this happened to me. It is traumatic, but if I skip my launch date, then I'm just going to push myself behind even more. And then what will be special about October 3rd? That doesn't have a special meaning to me anymore. So that was an important aspect.
All right. So what I think would be interesting to know is like, if you were doing hair, so it sounds like you were doing hair, I think you said 6 years before you started Trinity Place Designs.
Officially. Mm-hmm.
Officially. And then the
Mm-hmm.
products came at that point too, at the same.
Yes. Yep. At the
Okay,
same
so
point. Yep.
you made it all official when you decided to launch the website and start selling products.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So for 6 years, you were this thing
A
was
correction
developing.
officer.
Huh?
A correction officer.
For 6 years. Okay. Wait. What? Where's that?
Yes,
Where does that fit into the story?
that's after Dry Bar. And then I started working for the city to supplement income. That was one of the jobs so I was working for the city still as a correction officer, but also still doing hair. So I never really stopped doing hair. It just wasn't always the primary employment. I was on Rikers Island for 5.5 years as a
Oh my
correction
gosh.
officer.
I feel like we should have started with that one.
So basically in New York, being a correction officer is a high paying job, at least 6 figures. So my
Nice.
plan was to go there, make as much as I can make, and then once I'm ready to leave, I'm going to buy a home and start a business. So that's what the underlying theme of everything that I do or say or, give advice on is, if you are going to do something, have a plan, have a beginning goal and an end goal to it, so that the funding from that 9 to 5 or midnight job, you're using it towards your actual goal. Don't get lost in the job where, okay, I'm doing well, I'm comfortable. I don't care about doing hair anymore. I always knew in the back of my mind that I was using this to fund the career that I really wanted to have, which is having the product line and having my mobile business and having a salon in my home and all those things. So, I'm not against working, if you can manage it, but some people get comfortable and they forget the reason that they started.
I don't know how relevant this is, but what was it like being a correctional officer?
Well, Rikers, I'm not sure how much you know about Rikers Island, but I know on the
It's in
news
all the
they show
movies.
that.
It's a scary place.
Yes, it is a scary place. And honestly, the time that I spent there, I feel like I didn't think about the danger, which I don't know if I'm crazy or what, but I didn't necessarily think of the danger because I was so stuck on my goal, which pushed me through all the crazy things. And it was a lot of crazy things, a lot of fights, a lot of weapons, a lot of, just craziness that went on. And I worked in a male facility, so I didn't work with women.
Wow.
So these people are doing 25 years to life. There's some people that they haven't even been outside. They're asking me like, how did the new phones look? They're asking what's the weather, what's the new trends, because they haven't been out in normal population in so long. So I guess because in my twisted mind, I'm just like so interested in their mind that it pushed me through. But yeah, there was some scary times where they started fires, they throw food on you, they throw feces and urine, and luckily I've never experienced that, but I've been around people that it has happened to. So it is a very scary job. It is one of those thankless jobs that you need because you don't want these type of individuals in your neighborhood. So someone has to do it. But it's one of those jobs where it's like when I'm sit back because I'm no longer there, obviously. And I'm like, I can't believe I did that for that amount of time. Like, what was I thinking? Like, I applied to all kinds of jobs, and it's like I'm volunteering to be here.
Yeah. So how long did you do that for?
5.5 years.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that
long time.
the bulk of that time while you were building from license
Yeah.
to launch of your company. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And were you working full time?
Yeah, more than full time. That was when I was explaining about the understaffed. So there was a time period where COVID hit and like all these different things were going on. People were dying, people were leaving the job, people were afraid. So there were only a select few of us who were brave enough to still go to work during COVID.
Right.
The inmates were getting sick. It was a lot that was going on. So during that time, I actually slept at the jail very often.
Wow.
So I had to make a deciding factor at the end of it, like, okay, I need to be home with my family. This is kind of like crazy now. I'm like sleeping in the car, I'm sleeping in the locker room, I'm sleeping, like my partner would give me a break and I'm like sleeping standing up, just trying to like catch my breath from everything that's going on. So when it's happening, I think that you don't really know what you're going through. You're kind of just pushing through it because you know this is what needs to be done, or you tell yourself that, like, I need to make money. I need to get this goal accomplished. I need to do this. So you're not really thinking, wow, I'm really sitting in jail for 24 hours. They're locking the gates because there's a snowstorm. It's a state of emergency. So if you're on this side of the island, you have to stay here. If you're on the other side, you can't come onto the island.
Wow.
And those are some of the things that we really had to deal with. Like if inmate got too out of control, they would shut down the island and no one can go anywhere.
It sounds like there's a lot going on for you to also be building this business on the side.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
but I had to stay focused.
that's amazing. I think this is like a pretty good place to wrap it up. I think there's a really cool story. The whole idea of going to school, pursuing this idea that you have in your mind of, you want to be part of this industry or you want to do this for a
Hmm.
living, but just kind of not quite working out. So
Hmm.
taking a second to get some income coming in so you have some
Hmm.
level of security, but also not getting wrapped up and losing sight of your goals. Well, thank you for sharing.
No problem.
So I think I'd like to expand more on that process of opening and launching your business, but I think we should save that for the next time we have we talk. So, do you have any like last pieces of advice or thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, my most important piece of advice is finding someone that can be a mentor to you. That doesn't necessarily have to be in your industry, but just a positive influence. Not that I was a know it all, but I kind of felt like I know what I want. Like, I know what I want. I'm me. I know this already. But when I started being around different people that can inspire me in different ways and show me different ways to react and to do certain things, it really changed me for the better.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your
Yes, it
story.
was great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. See, it was perfect timing. Even though
Yeah,
we missed each other, this was perfect.
good.
So
I'm glad.
I
I'm
thank
really
you so much and I can't wait to see everything. And yeah, we can set up another time, however you want to break it up. I'm around.
awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed having you on. And I look forward to having you on again soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
All right.